Alright guys, so it's been a hot minute since I last posted a video. So today's video is going to be a little longer, a little more in depth, and I'm really excited to make it. And today's topic is how to stop overthinking. So when clients come to me, one of their biggest problems is that they overthink. They're in their own head a lot. So, they have a bad day at work and they go back home and they're just spiraling in their head. Or when they think about a past mistake or a painful memory, they just keep thinking and thinking about that. Or maybe they need to make a decision and they just can't stop thinking about what decision to make and they get stuck in their own head. So today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you how to stop overthinking. But before I jump right in, let me introduce myself for those who are new here. My name is Asha, and I work with sensitive introverts, and I help them break out of anxiety and find radical self-acceptance so that they can confidently show up in their workplace and in life. All right. So if you've been following me for a while, you know that my method of helping you break out of anxiety and the symptoms of anxiety is through uncovering your personality framework and walking through your individual life experience. Now, the reason I do that is because if we don't do that, we end up creating strategies that's just like a band-aid on a wound, like it feels good, it's in the moment, it's a temporary fix, but you find that the issue keeps coming back. So when we uncover your personality framework and walk through your life experience and create strategies through that, we end up going right to the roots, and we create strategies that are unique to you that target your roots so that you can actually overcome anxiety. This is why a lot of my clients have their own little unique tweaks when it comes to their anxiety strategies and the things they do to manage the symptoms of anxiety. But regardless of all these unique little tweaks, there is a foundational structure. So today I'm going to share with you what that foundational structure is so that you can create highly unique solutions to overcome your anxiety and stop overthinking. So there's two exercises you need to learn. The first one is the exercise that you do in the moment when you catch yourself overthinking. And the second one is an exercise that you implement into your daily routine that really targets the roots of why you overthink in the first place. So that way you have two exercises. One that helps you stop overthinking in the moment, and the other one that helps you pretty much prevent overthinking in the first place. So we're going to start off with the exercise that you do when you catch yourself overthinking. So let's walk through the steps and the foundational structure of that specific exercise. So ultimately, there's 5 steps. Number 1, catching yourself in the moment. Number 2, your breathing pattern. Number 3, identifying your overthinking pattern. Number 4, negotiating. And number 5, diverge. So one thing I want to mention is for both exercises, they might be difficult at first, but the more you practice, the better you'll get at it and the better you'll have control of your emotions. So number 1 is catching yourself in the moment. So this one is pretty straightforward. It's basically while you're overthinking, being able to stop and say, wait, I'm overthinking right now. It's catching yourself in that moment. Now, if you are familiar with meditation, this makes it a lot easier because when you're meditating, a lot of times, especially certain guided meditations, they teach you how to basically be comfortable or notice what it's like to spot certain emotions, spot certain thought patterns, be comfortable with identifying your thought patterns as you're having them. Number 2 is your breathing pattern. So basically doing a breathing pattern that works best for you, that allows you to calm down, immediately have a actual physical sensation of calming down, which actually gets you pretty much prepared and set up for the next few steps. Now, the breathing pattern that I usually recommend is 2 deep inhales and 1 slow exhale through the nose. Now, doing this a few times allows you to really balance out the carbon dioxide in your blood, and it actually has a noticeable effect on your tensions if you try it a couple times. Every time I do it, it works like a charm. Now, number 3 is identifying your overthinking pattern. Now, this one is where it gets a little bit tricky. Now, when I work one-on-one with my clients, I'm able to uncover their specific overthinking pattern according to their personality structure and life experience. So we can get really detailed. But because I can't do that through the video, I'm going to share with you 5 really common overthinking patterns so that you can see which one you kind of fall in. So the first one is overthinking fueled by the need for external validation. When it comes to this type of overthinking, basically you would feel like certain experience happened to you and you feel like your emotions are invalidated by the people around you. So you keep thinking about the situation that happened and kind of thinking, are you overreacting, or are people just invalidating validating your experience. So you're constantly thinking about it, trying to prove to yourself that actually, no, I have the right to feel this way, or maybe I don't. And so the whole overthinking pattern revolves around feeling validated. A little example would be, for example, you have a really hard to work with colleague who just seems to put down your ideas all the time and never really listen to anything you have to say. Now you're really frustrated and you go back home and you tell your loved ones, about this colleague, and what they say is, oh, you're taking this too seriously. They probably don't mean it that way. And you start to really feel uncomfortable because you're trying to explain that, hey, I'm feeling really wronged by this. But your loved ones don't necessarily see the problem as well as you do. So that throws you into a constant loop of thinking, am I actually overreacting, or do I actually have the right to feel this way? Now, this constant loop exists because of the fact that you have a need for external validation. And here's the problem with that one. It's that ultimately no one knows your experience apart from you. If you're gonna only allow yourself to feel validated if those around you, your loved ones, agree or understand where you're coming from, then it's going to be really intense and you're going to find yourself in this overthinking pattern a lot, because ultimately no one knows your experiences like you do. No one knows your core values like you do, what you actually care about and what you don't care about. So when you have a need for external validation, when it comes to validating your experience, you're going to notice that you have this overthinking pattern a lot. Now, when you struggle with this overthinking pattern, the exercise that you need to do on a daily basis to prevent this type of overthinking from happening is basically allowing yourself to shift from a place of needing external validation to shifting to self-validation. And that requires journaling and a lot of internal work. And that's the kind of practice you need to do every day. So yes, that kind of overthinking that is fueled by the need for external validation. Now, the next overthinking pattern is an overthinking that's fueled by a distrust in yourself and your ability to make the right decisions. Now, when you struggle with this type of overthinking, you basically set really unrealistic expectations of how certain you need to be before moving forward. And as a result, you end up basically just information gathering without ever feeling any sort of certainty. I mean, you could be basically researching for 6 months on what thing to buy or what decision to make, and by the end of those 6 months you feel just as uncertain as when you started, because ultimately, because you set such unrealistic expectations of certainty, it's inherently unachievable. Because it's not just unrealistic, most of the time there is no set expectation of certainty. It's almost like you just are looking for a feeling that even if it hits you, you wouldn't even recognize it. So when it comes to these type of overthinking, the kind of exercise you need to do on a daily basis to prevent this from happening is basically forcing yourself to set deadlines and make decisions. Get in the habit of making quick and fast decisions. Even if you make certain mistakes, get in the habit of making fast decisions. Now, the next overthinking pattern is an overthinking that's fueled by an over-identification to your emotions. Usually, you're experiencing some kind of intense negative emotion like anger or shame. And what you do is you try to amplify that emotion to justify that emotion. It's kind of, it gets to your head and you just want to make it bigger and bigger. And you start adding past experiences to basically add fuel to the fire. And suddenly there's this big theory like the world is against you. And that is because you're over-identified to your inner experience, to your emotions. So think about it as, you go to a work party and maybe people weren't as chatty with you as you wanted to. So on the way back home, you start thinking that, oh, it's because they don't like certain aspects about me. You start pulling all these past experiences where things didn't go right in the office. And you try assuming, oh, it's probably because of all these reasons they all hate me. And it starts, as you walk back home, you're just having this big whole conspiracy theory that everyone's against you, when in reality, maybe you weren't very chatty as well and you were in your own head a lot during that party, and because of that, people didn't feel like you were too approachable. So this overthinking pattern keeps you in an emotional loop because you keep thinking about past experiences and your current experience. You kind of really try to over-validate, if that makes any sense, over-validate that emotion. Be like, this is the truest emotion to ever exist and I need to really put it on a grand stage. Now, when it comes to dealing with this kind of emotion, when it comes to the exercise that you need to do on a daily basis, you need to start journaling on the kinds of emotions that you have and notice when you are adding fuel. You need to get in the habit of learning how to identify emotions and realize recognize the muscle of when you add fuel to the fire. Always question yourself. When you're journaling about thought patterns, like always question yourself, am I adding to the fire? Am I pulling past experiences? Always make sure to check yourself with that. It has to be a daily routine. Now, the next overthinking pattern is overthinking that's fueled by a deep fear of disappointing others and an inner sense of unworthiness. Now, when it comes to this kind of overthinking, it's basically usually when you have to submit a project or do a presentation and things on the line. There are people you look up to that you want to make proud, whether it's someone higher up or even your colleagues. And naturally, because you want to make them proud, there's this really deep sense of disappointing them, which coupled with an inner sense of unworthiness makes you feel like I'm going to disappoint them no matter what. So what happens is you start worrying about what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, how to do things in the best way. But instead of focusing on actually being the best, you're focusing on what action to take that's best in the sense of not disappointing others. So instead of thinking, I'm going to do this really well, you're thinking, I need to do this really well because I need to make someone proud of me, because I don't want to disappoint them. Now, naturally, when you are in a place where every step that you take, every word that you use is being judged by yourself of, is this good enough for the person I want to make proud? You're going to constantly overthink. It's just not going to feel like maybe this, maybe they're going to like that, because you can't predict what someone is going to feel. Oftentimes, when you struggle with this kind of overthinking, you just burn yourself out and feel like you don't even know what to do anymore. You don't know what step to take. You don't know what to actually do. Now, naturally, for this kind of overthinking, the kind of daily practice you need to do is, first of all, you need to identify those moments when you're living for others instead of yourself. Get in the habit of recognizing just how much of your thoughts and actions exist only because it's there to make someone else happy. Sit down with yourself and understand that real deep emotions, deep relationships can't exist when you're living for the other person. People don't know who you are when you're not authentic. And that kind of work can be really intense. And I can't get into it right now, but you know the overview. The last kind of overthinking is an overthinking that's fueled by a fear of judgment. So whenever you step out of your comfort zone and you express yourself, you immediately regret it and you instantly start thinking, oh, that was stupid, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have said that, and you start overthinking about everything you did and said because you're so embarrassed. Now, I know those last two can seem pretty similar, but they're actually not. So the overthinking that's fueled by the deep fear of disappointing others, now when it comes to that one, it only exists in those moments when you are putting yourself forward for example, like a meeting or a presentation, or you're coming back to show someone something. But generally, they don't have that fear. It's only when, it's like people are going to be judging them. They're going to be judged, an exam or, like an end of year work review, something along those lines. But generally, these people aren't afraid of expressing themselves. But with this last overthinking pattern of fear of being judged, naturally, these people, they just don't want to express themselves. They like blending against the wall. So any moment at all when they express themselves, when they, get out of the shadows that they're comfortable with, they start thinking, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I'm stupid. I shouldn't have shared that. I shouldn't have said anything. Not worried about anyone in specific. It's just a general sense of being judged. Now, the kind of daily routine, the daily exercise that you need to do to counteract this kind of overthinking pattern is basically really getting to your roots and understanding why you're so afraid of being seen. Really understanding why you're afraid of being seen. Where did that come from? And what are you really afraid of sharing? So those are some common overthinking patterns, and I hope you resonated with some of them and you find that you do certain patterns in certain facets of your life and another pattern in another facet of your life. But ultimately, what's really important is that you don't just lump it as I'm overthinking. Instead, you are understanding what kind of overthinking you're actually dealing with. Because ultimately, the more specific you get with your work, the better the results will be and the more long-lasting they will be. Because like I said, it's not just a band-aid. You're actually understanding and getting to the actual roots. Now, the next step is negotiation. So this one is pretty simple. It does take practice to learn what kind of negotiation you are comfortable with. But ultimately, is once you've identified your overthinking pattern, it is now time to negotiate with it. So it could be literally saying, hey, right now I'm actually falling into an overthinking pattern that is harming me and I don't want to do this. And that could be pretty much it. But sometimes it could feel like you are having a full out debate with your inner thoughts. What it feels like, I would like to say, like a devil and angel on each shoulder. And they're trying to say, you can have a conversation saying, why are you feeling this way? Like, you know about this, you know this, why are you feeling this way right now? And then your old voice will say, because all of these reasons, why not? And it's just a back and forth that you have to do, a nice little debate. So whatever it is negotiating with that voice. And sometimes you don't win, all right? So sometimes it doesn't turn out well and you do lose. The patterns, the thought patterns, they're too strong, and that's all right, because ultimately you get better with practice. And if you think about it, you didn't spiral into the overthinking. You actually decided to debate yourself instead and negotiate with yourself instead. Now, the final step is diverge. Now, this one's pretty simple. It's basically a state break. Once you've done, the first one, you caught yourself, you did the breathing pattern, you identified what pattern you're in, you negotiated with yourself, and now it is time to actually do something completely different. So listen to music, watch a comedy piece, whatever it is you need to do to pretty much get your attention and put it somewhere else, even if it's just for 1 minute. Because when you're in these heavy emotions, you can't fix these things when you're in them. You have to pretty much take yourself out of it and distract yourself for a bit and cool down, and then look into it and think about it. So diverging is all about basically, separating yourself from the moment and putting your focus of attention somewhere else. Now, by the end of these 5 steps, you'll notice that you'll have broken out of your overthinking pattern, you'll have negotiated with those voices inside, and you wouldn't have spiraled down into that overthinking place of hell. So like I said, it's going to take some practice, it's going to take some time, and that's completely fine. This is not supposed to be easy stuff. With time, with more practice, you'll get better and better, and you'll just generally notice yourself having a lot less spirals than you used to, especially when you couple it with the daily routine, the journaling that I said you have to do as well. You will find that there's a significant change in the amount that you overthink and how hard it is to get out of those moments when you find yourself in them. Now, helping you identify your specific overthinking pattern by uncovering your personality framework and walking through your life experience is exactly what I do in my Private Anxiety Transformational Program. It is designed to help sensitive introverts break out of anxiety and find radical acceptance so that you can confidently assert yourself in the workplace. I know just how anxiety can basically get you talked over and looked over for so many promotions, and basically not treated with the respect that you should get, because you're really good at what you do, and yet your anxiety is keeping you small and allowing others to treat you like you are small. All the details you need to know about my private program is in the description and in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll talk to you guys soon.